There are artists, there are legends, and then there are men whose absence shape culture just as much as their presence. Vybz Kartel and Buju Banton. Two Jamaican icons, both in prisons for years, both written off by many, both returned to a world that had changed and somehow bent that world back towards themselves. But here's the real question nobody honestly asks. Who had the bigger impact after prison? Not who's more loved, not who's more lyrical, not who's more conscious, but whose return shifted culture, industry, and power the most. This is not a clash. This is an examination. Let's start with Buju Banton. Buju Banton is an established giant. Before prison, Buju was already cemented. By the late 1990s and 2000s, Buju had crossed over globally, shifted from hardcore dancehall into roots and consciousness. Won a Grammy before the Dawn in 2010, was respected by elders, rastas, and international audiences. Buju wasn't chasing relevance. He was relevance, especially for a generation that valued message over hype. When Buju went to prison in 2011, the world didn't doubt his greatness. They assumed the story was paused, not ended. Kartel, on the other hand, was still in the middle of a cultural war. Before prison, he was redefining dancehall lyricism, driving slang, fashion, and rhythm selection. Running Gaza versus Gully, one of the most influential rivalry in black music history. Releasing music at an inhumane pace. No one can compete with him on that aspect. Kartel wasn't just an artist, he was a system. And when Kartel was jailed, many believe that's the end of him. Dancehall had never seen someone continue dominance from a cell like him though. So this is where the story is separated completely though. Buju prison era, silence as preservation, I think. Buju went quiet. No steady stream of music, no constant media presence, no attempt to stay trendy. Why? Because Buju power came from gravitas. Silence protected his mystique. In reggae culture, absent doesn't always weaken you. Sometimes it ages you into legend. Buju became a symbol of injustice, a martyr figure, a memory people held onto. His prison years froze him in time. In a time, you could say that. Kartel, on the other hand, again, is like the opposite. So from prison, Kartel, he released his album, dropped hit singles. His biggest song, Fever, was recorded in prison. He stayed in social conversation. He influenced new artists. He controlled the narratives. He do collabs with all of the hottest new stars. As I said, songs like Fever didn't feel like prison music. It felt current, dangerous, and alive. Kartel turned incarceration into a new operating system. Psychologically, this mattered. Fans didn't mourn Kartel, they rallied around him. And prison didn't weaken Kartel and make it bigger than ever before. Buju release felt ceremonial though. When Buju walked free, the long walk to freedom, as he said, Jamaica paused. The diaspora leaned in. The National Stadium filled with 30,000 plus people. The Long Walk to Freedom concert wasn't just a show. It was a collective exhale. Finally, the dawn has returned. Buju returned as a father, an elder, a voice of endurance. This was about healing, but here's the truth. Buju returned to a world where roots reggae no longer dominated mainstream attention. His impact was deep, but it was contained. When Vybz Kartel released though, Vybz Kartel release was chaos, put it that way. Phones out, timeline flooded, debates reignited about king, ship, and goatness. Yeah, basically the internet become Vybz Kartel playbook. Because Kartel didn't return as an elder, he returned as a force still in competition. Young artists still patterned after him. Old rival still reacted to him. Dancehall still revolved around him. Kartel didn't feel like history returning. He felt like the present reclaiming space. Buju post-prison music. Let's reflect on that. So after prison, Buju music reflected growth. It addressed time loss, spoke to spiritual grounding. Upside Down 2020 was intentional, mature, and thoughtful. But Buju wasn't chasing charts. You don't need to really. That man, discovery is second to none. He wasn't chasing the youth culture. He wasn't reshaping sound. His role was anchor, not the engine. Kartel came back swinging with new music, live performances for fans waiting 13 years for him, Grammy recognition, global tour announcement, and successfully did actually. And crucially, the young fans didn't discover Kartel as a legend. They experienced him as an active dominance. And that's rare. Most artists return as a nostalgia act. Kartel returned as competition, though. But let's strip the emotions away. Impact isn't who's more respected, who's more conscious, and who's more important historically. Impact is who bends attention, conversation, and behavior. So let's talk about Buju gravity. He have reverence. He's respected. He have emotional resonance with people. And he have cultural memory for many. On the other hand, Kartel's gravity is his influence on slang. From day one until now. What is under my nose? I'm out. Influence on fashion. Even his prison release outfit become a trend. He have influence on sound. You can tell for the last 10 years, is all mini cartels you see here in the dancehall. He have influence on youth psychology. Just take a walk into any town in Jamaica and you see the bleaching and all that, the tattoos he make. He basically have an impact on youth that mind. Cartel affect how people move. But Buju affects how people reflect. And that's the difference. But most won't say this though. Buju Banton's prison story is more about survival. Cartel prison story is more about defiance. Buju returned saying, I endured. Cartel returned saying, you couldn't stop me. And in modern culture, especially among young black audiences, defiance resonates louder than endurance. And that's not morality, that's psychology. But here is my final verdict on this issue. It's no hype, just the truth. Well hyped truth. Buju Banton's post-prison return was historical. Very historic. It was emotional and dignified. It restored balance. It healed wounds. But Vybz Kartel post-prison era altered the cultural trajectory of dancehall itself. So if the question is who had the bigger impact after prison, the answer is uncomfortable for some, but clear. Vybz Kartel, the world boss. Not because he's better, not because he's right, but because his return moved the needle of the culture, not just memory. But in closing, you have two men, two paths, two legacy. One return as a monument, the other return as a movement. And Jamaica, once again, gave the world a lesson in how culture survives even in the harshest cages. Bless up. Well hype.